Hi, superhero friends, and welcome to another Magical Monday. Although this officially is no longer called that, we are going to be doing a fun show tonight. We are going to be talking about my top three. I was going to say comic book crushes. That's another time. We're going to be doing my top three video game crushes, but I'm going to first give a little bit of a preamble. So, video game crushes. I did a bit of research before I started this show, just to look at what was out there, like what lists already existed in terms of like top 10 hunks of video games. And I've also realized like my type and my, I guess, my criteria as it comes to who I chose for my crushes may differ from most people, but that's, I think, the joy of these personalized lists, because what I find attractive is not necessarily what you will find attractive. But I hope by showing off what I find attractive about my top three heroic crushes in video games, that you may discover some interest in playing some of these games, because I think the true beauty of video games, and I've gotten into gaming quite a bit. Again, I was a big gamer when I was growing up. We had an N64 console, as well as my best friend Laura at the time, and we've recently reconnected, and I'm hopefully going to have her on the show at some point in time to talk about things like Highlander and a lot of the other ways that she actually helped to influence me a lot. But she had two older brothers, so she had like a Super Nintendo, and we still watched. Like I was like a really girly tomboy, I guess, growing up. But I influenced my sister, I think, a little bit with that as well, because she now makes video games, and is the reason how, I guess, I give her a lot of credit as to why I'm back into gaming again. And that's why I posted that whole video of like me and Borderlands 3, because I've really gotten to first person shooters, just because of the perspective and the idea of like the game of life. And my perspective even on astrology is that we are kind of like living out this really beautiful game of life, and what astrology really is beautiful and helpful in helping us do is to help us navigate our star story as we live it out. And so things like your rising sign, your ascendant, is kind of like when you first enter the game and you're like, okay, I'm going to play as this person. That's kind of like how I see the ascendant or rising sign. And then your soul purpose, that like main mission that powers you, that's really like your sun sign, your solar sign, what you typically, associate with your horoscope. And then, of course, your moon sign, which is about your emotional, deeper inner child, inner mother, all of that unseen, subconscious stuff that also sits in the subconscious of our minds mentally too, because I think sometimes we forget that emotions are also they're also mental, right? So when you feel angry or sad or any of those things, that is still like a mental emotion. And what I think astrology also helps us do is to feel with other energetic centers other than all of our mental processes, like our logical brain, and go inward into our heart, where things may be able to defy the laws of physics or pure mentalism to our benefit where necessary. And of course, with that, there's also balance and a shadow side to that as well. So this top three crushes thing, I was going to start the show with us doing a chart reading of the Everlasting Now. So I am instead going to leave that onto TikTok, because I'm going to be doing a multiversity reading. Not a long one this time, because I'm going to be using the studio as opposed to just my phone. But I didn't actually get the comic book pictures, so I'll show you the comic book I'll be reading later. If you want to join me on TikTok, I'm Rachel.Sabrina, and I go live pretty every other night, and I just do comic book readings, kind of like bedtime stories, because I found that comic books have had a lot of intel in them. Now, let's get into the parameters of the show itself. So the top three, I keep on going comic, but the top three video game crushes. Now, in terms of this, I've kept these to games that I have personally played. And I've also ensured that these are characters that are originally from video games. So let me explain. Like, for example, Batman has Arkham. They've got video games, right? But I didn't have that count in this particular list just because Batman, the character, did not originate from. Hold on a second, I'm just double checking my levels. Is telling me that I have a very fair connection, and I got into like a big fight with our internet provider earlier because Kevin was doing like a speed test, and like one time it was like fine, and then another time it was like super slow. So I was like, what the heck is up with that? But we seem to be okay now. But back to the parameters of what I was talking about. So I've kept these to video games that I myself have personally played, as well as characters that have originated from video games. And so, for example, if we think about like comic book characters, and like when I did that Sinistry reading between between Superman and Wonder Woman, which I think I had some mixed reviews about. I know that people either don't like them together, do like them together, but it was really supposed to be about an example of what happens when you interplay two different charts on top of each other and you see where those connections happen between the planets and all of those things at hand. So if we think about that way, the characters in these video games are ones that originated within the video game story itself. So you can have video games like, what's an example? Okay, like I was just about to say, like Batman or any kind of superhero games, or like RoboCop, for example, is a video game. Even Sailor Moon has a video game, but all of these are characters that have originated in other media. So those I have excluded from this list. And so without further ado, let's get into our crushes. My crushes. My 3 crushes. And if you want to get the show that I did with my friend Aarti a few weeks back, where that was supposed to be our top 5 crushes across like all media, but then we kept it to character crushes, which was also like a really long show, but really interesting. I recommend you watch it. And so we'll probably revisit it, but I'll have it be just a little bit more focused, right? So we'll maybe do comic book crushes next, and I'll have some guests on that. And we're going to have some Star Wars things coming up as well, because the book I'm writing is science fiction fantasy. So that's a very specific type of genre when it comes to novels, but that's not the topic of today's show. Today's show is about my video game crushes, and I made a whole presentation just to keep us organized and so that I'm on time as well for the next show. And you know, with technology and all of those things, Mercury willing, you want to ensure that you have enough leeway time, enough buffer time to make sure that all the tests go well, that everything is as it should be. So welcome to my video game crushes, and to have a little bit more of an astro spin to it, I'm also going to have for each of my crushes an astro stack of each of them, so their rising and their sun and their moon, and explain how that kind of relates to their personality and maybe why I myself am personally attracted to them, and perhaps you are too. And if you had to do your video game crushes, male or female, actually I was going to put Samus in here as a crush, but I'll maybe do that for like a female crush episode, so stay tuned for that. What was I saying? I was saying something else before I went off on a tangent. Forget it. Let's just go into number 3. So number 3, now remember they're coming from the games itself, is Ryu from Street Fighter. And if you are on my Golden Sugar channel, you'll see that I have fun cosplay with Ryu and Chun-Li. I had a request to do the fight again so that Chun-Li actually wins against Ryu. But Ryu is pretty badass. He's like based on a real karate master from Japan. But all of these characters, it's always fun because they all actually have birthdays. They all actually have established birthdays. And so I'm going to just let you guys know what Ryu's birthday is and what his astro stack is. Actually, first, why did I pick Ryu? I was going to actually pick honorable mention Johnny Cage from Mortal Kombat, but you'll see thematically each of the top three that I picked also relate to different types of games. So Ryu's from Street Fighter, Capcom, very much a button mashing game when I first played. Kevin downloaded Tekken the other day and we played the demo. It was awful. The gameplay was fine, but it took us forever to like go through the lobby. We had to like join this arcade. It was real. I don't recommend it. If anyone's played Tekken, you let me know if you like it. But Ryu's from Street Fighter, right? So very much a fighting game. And Ryu and Ken are very much mirrors of each other. And according to official Capcom information, so Capcom lore, Ryu was born on July 21st, 1964, making him 25 years old when the first Street Fighter game was released in 1987. So yet another game that was created in the 80s. That's right. So, and also all you 1987 babies. So that's the thing that's different from this. And when I made the comic book Astro stuff, because in that they do also have lore, like for example, Wonder Woman's birthday is March 22nd and Superman's birthday is a leap day, February 29th. But in terms of the year, that's tough, right? I based it on the first issue of what that comic book was when it came out. But in this case, it's not the same in the sense of like Street Fighter came out in 1987 and that would make Ryu 30 something at this point. But the way it kind of goes right now, I think at Street Fighter 6, Ryu's like 45, 46 years old. So I think they're trying to establish him as being like a master because he's supposed to be a master martial artist. And you'll also find that like in the 80s, the Goonies, all of these movies in the 80s, when you had like the heroic male tough guy character, he always had like the red headband, right? Like even Rambo, like the whole, it's like must be some sort of symbol of something tough. And I do love Ryu just because, yes, he's jacked. That is like definitely a criteria for me specifically. But his Astro stack, because he's July 21st, 1964, he's a Taurus rising. This could be, we don't know his time exactly, so I'm making some inferences here in terms of him being a Taurus rising. I'll explain why in just a second. His sun is in Cancer and his moon is in Sagittarius. So Taurus rising, when you don't know your birth time, remember what I said about the ascendant sign being kind of like the mask, like how you first play this game? To me, Ryu is kind of a Taurus rising. Look at how huge and jacked he is. Even when I cosplayed Kevin, I was like, I have to like redo some of these like camera angles so that I can just make it look like super cartoonish, like how jacked you actually are. And having this be rising sign is that Taurus is like the bull, it's strength. We watched the movie Lamborghini and I was like so pumped because I'm a Taurus about how they picked the logo, the bull, the strength of that bull, and then like the pure. Also, although Taurus is a feminine sign, it's also like the power of the earth. So when in a masculine form, there tends to be an earth warrior behind it. I have to, oh my gosh, let me look up. There's a translation to Ryu that is actually really nice. So Ryu Street Fighter translation. There's a wiki. I'll share that with you guys. I'll share that with you guys on another thing maybe. Why isn't it showing up? I need to find it quickly. Well, okay, I'll just read this out while I have you here. Ryu draws inspiration from Masutasu Oyama and from Karate Master. His rival Sagat is visually based on Yoshisena's rival Reba. The events of the first Street Fighter, as told in Ryu's backstory entry, pays homage to Karate Master, the fiction based on Matsutatsu Oyama, where he and his students go to Thailand to take on the strongest fighters. More specifically, the last issue, which tells the journey of Oyama's student, Yoshi Soena, whose journey to Thailand to face off against the best of Muay Thai. So kind of like what we have right now with like UFC, right? You have like the different fighters going off against each other. I don't know where I was reading that Ryu translates to Earth Warrior or World Warrior. I think it's World Warrior. Don't quote me on that. I will find that and make sure that it is correct. World Warrior. But reason why I have a big crush on him, yes, he's jacked. He does a really cool Hadouken. But he's a fighter, and he's got that also like lone wolf mentality. One of my favorite anime movies actually is the Street Fighter movie, and you know, like where Chun-Li fights Vega, but also just it focuses a lot on Ryu, and he like walks around alone, like barefoot a lot, traveling the world, kind of a lone wolf, even though he's like really good friends and close to Ken. But I vibe with that a bit. And in terms of his astro, the moon in Sagittarius, his emotional side being in that fire sign, yes, the Hadouken, and yes, this being able to fight that warrior spirit, the red in him, the idea of like channeling that dragon energy is definitely there. Also, Sagittarius comes with it the idea of travel and being restless, trying to find pure truth anywhere, and your inner self is constantly searching for that out there. The sun being in Cancer, I look at that as being like your sole purpose is to be able to protect those that you love. Cancer, at the heart of it, is a shield, and think of it as like the chest. And while Leo is very much the heart, Cancer is like the shield that protects the heart. So I look at this as very interesting in the stack, and as we go through the other video game crushes that I have, you'll find that like there tends to be some similarities with at least the ones that I picked as being very attractive. So my number 3 of crush, my video game crush, is Ryu from Street Fighter. He's also really fun to actually play. And that also goes back to why I picked these certain characters, because I've actually played these guys in video games. And so, you know, to embody a character and this idea in each of us, we have a male and a female side. And Tantra, which translates to loom, is the idea of weaving together disparate parts. And so like while in Kevin, of course, my husband, he gets to embody that other side of me, right? Like me being female and him being male, and we come together and do all that. But in each of us, we also have a male and female side. And so what I look at is that in our crushes, in our idealized, characterized, you know, guys we find cute, like there's an element of like the male aspect of you that learns from that. And so from Ryu, I feel like there's a lot of like honor and loyalty and standing up for what you believe in, and the idea of just being that like earth world warrior, but also then learning. He has this in his characteristic, he also has a goofy side as well, which is why I think that the Taurus is in there too. So number 3, Ryu from Street Fighter. Let's move on now to number 2. So number 2, I have Commander Shepard from Mass Effect. Now, Mass Effect is interesting too, because Mass Effect, what a cool game, right? RPG, space adventure. You can have all these relationships with all these different aliens and stuff like that. And Shepard, you can play as either a male or a female. But whenever I've played Mass Effect, I want to play as Commander Shepard, like this guy, you know, because he's hot. And so I'd rather play from his perspective, from like being sexy space warrior. So in universe, Commander Shepard, both male and female, do share a birthday. And that birthday is April 11th, 2154. Because remember, it's a space adventure, so it's in the future. So Commander Shepard's birthday is April 11th, 2154. But good news for us when you put that into an astro calculator. And this is why I guess you could say that astrology has some predictive qualities to it, because the cycles of time, you can project forward into 2154 what his astrology would be, right? With all of the bigger planets as well. So he was born on April 11th, 2154, making him around 28 or 29 years old in the first game. So Mass Effect 1, he's supposed to be late 20s, and then he's 32 when Mass Effect 3 comes out. And his astrology stack, as a result of knowing this information, is that he's a Cancer rising. See how Cancer crops up again? And then he's a sun in Aries and a moon in Aries. And I like, that's true, like warrior energy. And with the lunar node being in, North Node being in Aries, this kind of energy is like ripe to learn about right now. Now, the Cancer rising is interesting, right? Like, I find that myself personally, being a Taurus, I like Cancers a lot. And you do find that in male signs, or guys in general, having Cancer placements can be somewhat challenging. Mainly because think about Cancer ruling the moon, and that can be, moody, temperamental, emotional. Cancer rules like the home life and security, like motherly things. And so a lot of times with these guys, it's a lot of resolving. I was saying, like, we all have an inner masculine and an inner feminine. So with these guys, it's a lot of resolving that within themselves. So in a Cancer rising, from Commander Shepard's perspective, now remember, this is going to be the same astro for both male and female Commander Shepard. Something to think about. So in both, that Cancer rising, it's already going to come off as being caring and compassionate and a shield and caring. Like, almost the shadow of it would be that it would be almost overbearingly so, and like overprotective. But in this case, he's meant to be like the protector of the galaxy from the Reapers and stuff, and has to build a team. Like, my story behind this is that I love watching Kevin play video games, and Mass Effect, me and my sister actually started to play this on PC and tried to stream it, but I ended up in this like level where I had to like find all these bombs in this time. And like, that's one thing about video games. I can't stand some games where like they try to make things hard for like no reason. Like, I know, I get it. It just can't all be shooting and like killing people all the time. But like the mazes or like the more like puzzle aspects of it, it's like hit and miss how well those are executed, in my opinion. But Cancer rising, if you have that, it's very much a level of like your emotions will maybe kind of like, you wear your emotions on your sleeve to some degree. Hard to lie, perhaps. And also, you're going to gravitate towards wanting to protect those that you love around you. And depending on what their signs are, they're going to either like find that really attractive, like in my case, or that it can sometimes be considered overbearing. Now, that level of emotionality is now tempered by having both the sun and moon in the sign of Aries, which is very much forthright, the self, the lone warrior, being able to like do things on your own if needed, and like, I'm just going to do it myself. So Aries, I have a lot of Aries placements too myself, and so I gravitate towards this, and this is probably why, I find this attractive. Just that idea of being able to like, no matter what, you're going to get stuff done, and like, even though you started alone, you're able to have this like Cancer rising aspect and emotionally still connect with others. Because I remember when Kevin was playing this game, Mass Effect 2, you have, it's like there's RPG aspects to it, and the idea of like you having relationships. And so you'll have like a crew of people, and in the final mission, he like some of them died, but I think there's like an ending where like they all live. And so like you can beat the game, but then like your whole crew could be dead but you, right? So how, depending on how you play the game, depends on like how much of your crew you leave out. And so, and within Commander Shepard, he does have all of those kind of placements that will like, I think, dictate the fact that it makes sense that him as a character could choose to like sacrifice to have all of his friends survive, or like make hard decisions and like leave people behind. But ultimately, though, what it comes down to is that Mass Effect is a truly breaking game. This is the ability to play story, all of that kind of stuff. I do love a good story in a video game, and Commander Shepard is a perfect character to be able to play that out. Plus, he's really cute to boot. Nice design there, Commander Shepard. All right. And then in number 1, I don't think it's actually really a surprise because I've been very open and upfront about this, but I'm just going to get into more detail as to like why I think this. Number 1 is the Master Chief from Halo. Now, lots of controversy. Hold on a second. I feel like there's a little bit of a delay on some stuff. Oh, maybe. It's okay. I'm not going to let that bother me. Okay. Let's continue. So, essentially, my number 1 pick is the Master Chief from Halo. Yeah. And I had to do some digging in terms of like Halo Wiki to find out what, actually, before I get into his birthday and his stats and all the Astro, I'm going to explain why I love Master Chief so much. Now, I know there's a show. Actually, I'm going to stay here. I know there's a show. I know there's a Halo show. And really fun fact, but that actor, Schreiber, what's his name again? I always still remember him from being the leprechaun in American Gods, but oh my gosh, what's his name? Anyways, the actor who's not Master Chief, who's like insisting on taking off his helmet. The biggest no-no ever, because the reason why Master Chief is so attractive is because it is the helmet. It is the mystique. It is this idea of being this like lone wolf warrior that like no matter what, he's got this. And me and my hubby play Halo a lot, and I joke with him how like I'm like his Cortana, and if you're like wifey goddess energy, like you get to act as like Cortana for your warrior, just little sassy little stuff with like, are we gonna make it? And he'll be like, we'll make it, in his Master Chief voice, that iconic Master Chief voice. And really, like, you're really only supposed to be able to see Master Chief's, like, you get to see like some of his face, maybe some of his face when he takes off his helmet, if you beat the game on Legendary. So, and like, I think Halo 3 or 4 or something like that. So like, it's kind of like a slap in the face to anyone who's like loved the games, grown up with the games, had LAN parties in the basement with playing Halo as Master Chief, because we are all Master Chief. And like Spartacus, they're Spartans, and like how it's like, I'm Spartacus, and that's the whole idea. Because when you play the game of Reach, John 117, aka the Master Chief, is not there, but literally every other Spartan 2 perishes on Reach because of the Covenant. So he's literally like the last of his kind. I know he like joins up with other Spartans who are of a different type than him, but he is of that initial program. And it's kind of messed up too, right? Like he gets stolen as a child and like replaced with like a flesh clone who like dies so that like his parents don't know that like he's off to become like a super soldier. He's like extra tall, super jacked, but like he's kind of like a demon monster. If you like look at him in like any of the video games, he's so much bigger and like jacked and taller than like literally everyone else in the game. And why is that attractive? It's just it's alpha. It's the alpha male. It's the confidence that he will be able to get stuff done, you know, like super impossible missions, but still like, no, we're going to do this like no matter what. And that kind of energy is so needed right now, and we need just all of us to embody the spirit of Master Chief, not have this like one actor think that his perspective, that one way of looking at Master Chief is like the one that we all have to kind of go with now. So we all have the choice of what media we choose to consume, what stories we choose to consume, and that's why I've gone back to just play the original storyline of Halo again. And because also like I love Cortana, right? Like she's sassy and like the Monitor. And I have also been reading the books, which made me like be very sympathetic to the Didac. Hold on, I've got to. I think I'll read an excerpt before we go from this, because it's actually this is book 2 in the Forerunner saga, and it talks about like what it means to be a reclaimer and all that kind of stuff. So there's so much they could have done with Halo in terms of storytelling, and then they just didn't, and whatever. I'm ignoring the show. Just play the game again. The story's better. But in terms of Mr. John 117, John's probably not even his real name. 117 is the facility that he grew up in. But let's go into what his birthday is. His birthday was, because he lives on forever. Characters like this are immortal. So born on March 7th, 2511. Yeah. I think, is that 2511? Oh my gosh, or 2311. Remember in the future, 2511. Sorry. John lived with his mother and father in Elysium City on the colony world of Arendis II. He attended Elysium City Primary Education Facility 119. And he talks a lot about playing the games a lot, being really good at winning the games. Like Halsey especially likes him. And remember, Cortana picks him specifically, and she says it's also because he's got a big streak of luck. And his astro stack, this is the cool part, because I wasn't expecting this astro stack from Master Chief. So he's a Cancer rising as well, just like Commander Shepard. I find that interesting. And also remember that I don't exactly know these fellas' birth times, so this is an inference kind of based on, yeah, so like it could be what's beside Cancer. Leo could be another possibility in terms of being a rising sign. And so Leo could be another possibility, or perhaps Gemini. I really don't think so, because it was closer to what the Leo is, because it's Cancer, Leo, and then Virgo in terms of that quadrant. But he's a Cancer rising. His sun is in Pisces because of March 7th, and his moon is in Leo. Now, the moon in Leo totally makes a ton of sense. That action and like that soul purpose, the solar plexus, the will within, and how Leo is ruled by the sun, and the moon being in there is that wonderful like idea of him serving that deeper subconscious world collective purpose in that, and his emotions, his subconscious self is forever tied to that. Sun being in Pisces also brings itself to that. It's this idea that Pisces exists in the dream world. The idea of also being like the last of your kind, the last of your colleagues, your friends, of a tribe of people that, sometimes astrology talks a bit about healing or being the one who's going to be the healer, the conduit to heal ancestral trauma. And I feel like Sun in Pisces, if you have any Pisces placements, there is already this really like strong connection to the ineffable and like the dream world. And so, you know, it's a matter of like, I think that's why sometimes people can become more mechanical, and we put up walls, we put up things in front if we find that we are too attached. That's like, the coping mechanism that helps deal with it. So Sun in Pisces, just like Superman, and he has a similar thing too, right? Last son of Krypton. And if you're like the last of a kind, there is a grand purpose for you to live out your purpose, not just for you, but for all of you. And I also think Master Chief, like remember I said, we are all Master Chief. And when you play that video game and you're the one saying like, no worries, we got this, and you're like kick ass and stuff, it's empowering. It helps you within your own life also have that confidence that like, you got this, even though things can seem almost overwhelming or impossible. That inner warrior, that he's still human, and so we're all still connected in that level of like what's possible in terms of like extraordinary abilities. So that is why my number one pick for my number one pick for video game crushes is the Master Chief from Halo. All right, so that takes care of that. I'm going to leave with some like wise words of wisdom about the game of life and astrology, and just this idea that yes, you can use astrology to predict. And if you are interested in getting a reading from me, I actually have a workshop coming up. I'm going to be putting up all of our events for Golden Sugar. Should be up by tonight. I'm not going to be doing it too late of a TikTok thing. It's more of a test to use their studio. But I will be having, for the full moon on the 24th on Saturday, we'll be having a 2-hour moon magic workshop, just from my perspective, where we're going to be looking at Sailor Moon and tying that to learning about your moon sign. And so the moon in each of the signs, your emotional body, what that means for you, as well as just a little bit about like divination during different times of the moon, like when is it a good time to release, when is it a good time to manifest, and some like guidelines behind how you can like best harness the power of the moon, as well as a little bit more in-depth info behind your personal moon sign. Like, are you born on a full moon? Are you born on a new moon? And in what sign? And what does that mean? So when you know all these things about yourself, you'll also be able to empower yourself in how you approach the game of life. Like, knowing that my moon sign was in Gemini, at first I was like, no, how is that possible? But you learn to accept those things about yourself, because if you refuse to accept that, then you're going to end up behaving in certain ways that you can be manipulative if you're Gemini moon, because you can and you don't mean to be sometimes, right? But you should, it's because the moon is ever changing, and Gemini can be duplicitous, so you could change your mind and your emotions quite quickly sometimes. But luckily enough for me, I have some Taurus energy to help ground that. But we are all the signs, we're all of these aspects. It's just about when at certain times in the cosmic alignments that we feel, and it's not always easily explained, but I found that after you just look at it and hone your own inner knowings, your inner way of deducing and feeling through things, and the more you practice that, the more you get better at it. and the more you end up having confidence in your own abilities and what you're meant to do here in the game of life. Makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so thank you for joining me for this live stream, my friends. If you want to support the channel, you can always buy me a mushy/coffee. It says that I can change it to mushy. So if you buy me a coffee, it's really a mushy. As well as you can join our mailing list, and we're going to be having our weekly remote/virtual training starting next week. We're going to have registration, so every week you'll be able to kind of sign up, and it's going to be a full week of strength training, endurance training, flexibility training, supplement checklist, everything that you need to live optimally. So that's all going to be kind of set up in our portal, and I will have all of those links available very soon. But if you want to make sure you're up to date with all of that kind of stuff, just make sure that you join our mailing list so that you don't miss any of those updates. Okay, and so before I wrap up the call, I'm going to read an excerpt from book 2 of Halo Primordium before I flip over. Like, I love like the amount of like time and like work that has gone into like the lore of Halo, because there's so much juiciness when it comes to like the Forerunners and like the true history of humanity and stuff. Okay, so let's see here. So I found out too, like if you played Halo, that stupid monitor, that AI monitor, they say like some of them were actually human beings before. So I'm going to read you this little first part. Halo Shield Alliance 631. Record of communications with autonomous mechanical intelligence. Forerunner monitor. So that monitor thing where like they try to make you activate the Halo rings, but really it's like a trick. Anyways, sorry if that's a spoiler for anyone who hasn't played the game. Science team analysis. Appears to be severely damaged. Duplicate of a device previously reported lost or destroyed. Machine language records attached as holographic files. Incomplete and failed translation attempts deleted for brevity. Translation style localized. Some words and phrases remain obscure. First successful AI translation. Response stream. Date redacted. 16:21 hours. Repeated every 64 seconds. Now here's the good part. What am I, really? A long time ago, I was a living, breathing human being. I went mad. I served my enemies, and they became my only friends. Since then, I've traveled back and forth across the galaxy and out to the spaces between galaxies, a greater reach than any human being before me. You have asked me to tell you about that time, and since you are the true reclaimers, I must obey. Are you recording? Good, because my memory is fading rapidly. I doubt I'll be able to finish this story. Once, on my birth world, a world I knew as Tyrene, which is now called Earth, my name is Chakas. Or my name was Chakas, rather. Multiple data streams detected. Covenant language stream identified. Prior contact with Covenant likely. Break for a recalibration of AI translation. We realize the difficulty of accessing all parts of your store of knowledge, and we'd like to help you in any way that we can, including making necessary repairs, if we can be made to understand how you actually work. What we're having difficulty with is your contention that you were once a human being, over 1,000 centuries ago. But rather than waste time with a full discussion of these matters, we've decided to proceed directly to your narrative. Our team has a dual focus for its question. First question. When did you last have contact with the forerunner known as the Didact, and under what circumstances did you part ways? Second question. What goals did forerunners hope to achieve with their ancient relations with humans? Response team 1352, date redacted, hours, first portion lost, non-repeating. So then the book begins with, looked across the deck of the starboat at the Didact, a massive gray-black shadow with the face of a warrior god. He was impassive as usual. Far below, at the center of a great gulf of light filled with many ships, lay a planet under siege, the quarantine prison world of San Sekshayan. What will happen to us? I asked. They will punish, Reiser said gloomily. We're not supposed to be here. I turned to my small companion, reached to touch the long, dry fingers of his outstretched hand, and shot an angry glance at Bornsteller, the young manipulator. So, yes, I remember this because we already had the whole first book where they discover the Didact, and then you learn about the librarian. And Halo 4 has the Didact as a bad guy, and he's really annoying. But you find that like human beings are a lot older than what they would have you believe, and they like de-evolve them and then they re-evolve them. And so this idea of we have an older memory than what we think we do, and like the idea that stories and histories can be very, very, very easily manipulated. And so it's important to stretch your consciousness, find new stories, reach out to the characters that really touch your heart, and underneath all of that, through that, is the nugget of truth that you can use to empower your own life in the game of life as you go out there into the cosmos doing your own thing and serving your soul purpose. And so, my starseed friends, superhero friends, I hope that you enjoyed this live stream with me. I will be back on Wednesday for Warrior Goddess Wednesday, where we'll be talking about the goddesses of wisdom, including Sophia, Athenu, and more. So join me for that. And if you want to join me for any of the comic book live readings, I will have a link to that under this in the show notes, so you can get a handle of all of that in the upcoming show schedule as well. So anyways, I hope you have a beautiful day, evening, lunchtime, wherever you reside in the cosmos, my friends. Until next time.